stirs the cauldron beneath the moon.
Well, welcome back to another episode of The Witch and the Wise Man. I am the Wise Man, Dave Riley, and this pretty lady sitting right next to me is...
Tonya Steinborn, the witch.
Ah, Tonya. Are you guys still buried in snow up there? Tanya's up in Canada, and I'll say, sorry we beat you guys in the Olympics at hockey, but, you know, it happens.
Paying attention. Bread and circuses, my friend. Bread and circuses.
All right. So what are we going to be talking about during this little venture?
So we're going to be talking about the old gods and why they're calling again and why people are starting to really leave institutions. It's been kind of a bit of a trend as far as organized religion. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and, you know, you and I have touched on this subject, God, I don't know how many times. It always just, you know, seems to roll around when we're having our discussions. And I don't know, man. I think a lot of it is there's a lot of people that are starting to see some realities that they refused to see before. Not that they weren't there. They were always there. They just refused to take a more biased look at them. I think there's a lot of people being disappointed and discouraged by the whole thing. You know, I mean, the whole thing. And it's, you know, I'm sure you saw that meme that I posted on our website about, you know, it showed an altar, a witch's altar, and it says, you know, pretty much why is this considered sin and witchery by the church. And then the next frame over is a bunch of kids standing there on Ash Wednesday with ashes on their forehead, but that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
You know, they're starting to look at it more objectively, I think. And that has a lot to do with it. And they're looking for something more real, something they can sink their teeth into and be part of.
Well, I think too, like people are, it just goes with people questioning things and starting to like really examine things in their life as to why they believe things or why they're moving through the world the way they are. Because in reality, like when you're talking about the Ash Wednesday and, you know, like all these things that are going on with the religions, like it's so pagan, especially the Catholic Church. It's actually so much of it is just, it's pagan. So it's kind of like, they're on one hand saying like, this is evil, this is pagan, but it's like, but like all your incense and your smoke and all of this is like
meditation and it's all.
Yeah, but that's okay. You know, and what's interesting about the ashes on because they do the cross, right? And when you know that's actually they're actually taking your personal power and your connection to the divine away when they're doing that on your third eye. There's a purpose for that, you know.
About that. Yeah, you're right. Right. Wow.
It's very ritualistic.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like you look at the two, and don't get me wrong, you believe whatever you want to believe in this world, whatever helps you get through today and into tomorrow, that's what you need to be following, and that's what you need to be believing in, regardless of what we say or anything else. Okay, just keep that in mind. We're not condoning or condemning anybody. That's not the point here. But yeah, I mean, you look at the two side by side, and you know, witchcraft or paganism and the Catholic Church, and it's like they're doing the same thing. You know, you know, they're doing the very same thing that, you know, and I don't understand it. You know.
Well, that's power and control. That's at the end of the day, you know, like they came in and they, a lot of times, you know, they'd kill the priests and the priestesses and the shamans and all that, and they would burn their temples and then they would build their churches on these sacred places, right? So, Yeah, like like I said, you look at that, that's blocking the third eye. When people do this, they're actually bringing down their own authority, their power. And you can do that with energy testing, where you like, you do the energy testing with your fingers, or somebody puts your arm down, and you can tell a difference. Like, you can bring your energy, and I've done this with lots of people. I've said, okay, like, do some breathing, bring your energy into center, and then, I say, okay, resist, and then I push down their arm to see, okay, that's strong, and then I get them to do that, and immediately it's like they completely lose all strength because you've crossed your energy field. And the same thing with the incense. When, like, they're doing this with the incense, it's called raking. So they're actually raking down your energy field, like bringing that energy field down. And when you do these practices, like I'm saying about bringing your energy into balance, and then you do that, and you can actually feel the difference of you lose your strength completely. So it's a very interesting thing when you start to actually analyze that.
And I have to agree with you. And there's no argument on this, that it is definitely a control thing. They're programming you to act this way, to believe this way, to feel this way. To do these certain rituals, to do this certain stuff, and everything else is wrong, and everything else is a sin. And these people are starting to they're just not buying being controlled anymore. By this higher power. If you can't be sin free and do nothing except sit on your ass all day long, doesn't work like that. Humans are humans, and they're trying to control, I think, your natural function at being a human. And once people get out of this, then they're starting to feel like they're in control of their life now. They can make decisions. And granted, there's some people that need people to tell them what to do. But, once you break free of that cycle, and start becoming your own person, and start noticing the world around you and what's going on in the world around you, then, that they're just looking for that. I think they just want to be in control and in charge of their own lives for once, instead of somebody else telling them what to do.
Yeah. Well, it's like, who was it, that quote that said religion is opium for the masses? Who said that? I gotta look that up quick. And that's so true, because it's basically like, here's what to believe, and here's how to act, and here, give your authority to these priests, and then, the Pope and whoever else, right? Like, above you. So it's, people just want to believe something, and they don't want to have to do the work. They just want to be told. And then I think there was a lot of that in the past, but now that is all starting to dissolve, because people are really starting to, I think, really honestly, the internet was a game changer as far as, like, people finding out information. Like, think about how many rabbit holes you've been on like, in your life.
Speaking
in the past 20 years or 30 years.
Speaking of which, my friend sitting in tonight, Jess, just looked it up. It's Karl Marx that said that.
Okay. Thanks, Jess. Yeah. That's a great quote, because it's like, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I think people are just starting to look for that better life. They want to be one with everything, that, I don't know. You just don't get that in an organized religious setting. I've never experienced that. I think there's a lot of other people that are getting that too. They just want to feel part of the world, instead of being segregated in your own little, niche, whatever. And that's why they're going back. They're looking like yourself, naturopathic nurse, a Reiki master, and all of these things are building the body and building the conscience, building the mind, and causing you to grow as a human being where they've been pushed down. You can't do that. That's wrong. The church doesn't like that, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, it's a control.
Well, and I think too, like this calling, when we say like why the old gods are calling, I know I really experienced that probably like I like to say about 15 or so years ago, this like feeling in my bones, of like my ancestors, and you can feel like the old ways. It is like a calling, right? Like, and suddenly I'm, exploring Celtic shamanism and Norse mythology, and there's just something when I read it that just is familiar and feels right, and I connect to it like nothing nothing that you could read in the Bible or any kind of Abrahamic religion text that makes sense to me, that hits me like in my soul the way those things do, because that's our ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if we're European, our ancestors would have been right? That's what they were all pagans. Like, let's face it, they were. They
absolutely were. Even, even up to look at the pilgrims that came to the U.S. They were run out of England for their religious beliefs. And that was some tight ass religious beliefs too. Those guys were heavy into that shit. But they were so off the cuff that England ran them out, and they showed up here. So yeah, you're gonna have the extremes and the off branches, and in fact, my son and I were talking about this the other day, and he said, how come can't just be one religion? Why is there so many different religions? They all basically believe in the same thing. They're just believing in it in different ways. And I said, that's it exactly. You're not going to get that many people all thinking the same way. It's just not going to happen. And the proof is the Baptist Church. How many splits has that thing had? It's your Southern Baptist and your Northern Baptist and your Eastern Baptist and your blah, blah, blah Baptist. And, they've got several different layers of Baptists because they couldn't figure out how to do anything. They couldn't agree on anything. And it's the same way even with the Amish. They're infighting all the time because their beliefs are so different between each little act, group, family, whatever.
Yeah.
That they branch off into all of these little brackets, Well, those guys can use cell phones, but we can't use cell phones. Well, they can ride in a car. You can't ride in a car. Well, you see that a lot in between them. How can they, do that? I thought they weren't supposed to do that. Well, those guys don't do that. It's okay if they do that. So you get all of this inward fighting. And because nobody can agree on anything, but when somebody steps away from that, like you and I, and really sits down and starts examining your life and then start expanding from there, your life, your surroundings, your town, your country, your world, your place in the solar system, it just goes on, and then you figure out reality. Reality kicks. You're not believing in a fantasy any longer. That, yeah, they can't prove it. They got a book, and it's a cool book with a lot of stories in it, and a lot of them are just the same story over and over because they couldn't agree on how to tell that story either. So you got 12 different books telling all the same story, right?
Yeah. But I think that's where like the old gods and our answers had things kind of right, I guess, a little bit more in alignment, because, depending on where they lived, it would be what they worshipped, right? Like if you were if you needed the ocean and the fish and all of that to survive on in your village, then you're going to be more prone to pray to the gods that, operate keep things going in the ocean so that, because that's your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't catch fish, if you can't, if your men are going on the fishing boat and they're going to die in a storm, like those were the gods that you would be appeasing to, right? Whereas say if you're more inland, those gods would look different because your life depended more on, say, art, like agriculture and growing food. So you would be more prone towards worshiping gods or deities that would be directly involved with that, right? Or that you think would be. So and there was a little bit more harmony with that, I think, because we're not, like you said, we can't agree. Like what's important to us here, what's important to say here, me, Canada, and Eastern Canada is going to be different than what you're experiencing where you live because it's different. It's different terrain. It's different politics. It's different, right? So this one size fits all is just, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. You hear though, and I don't know if it's just hearsay or what, but you hear about a resurgence in religion and how more and more young people in this generation, last generation, whatever, are now all flocking towards the church because they need some kind of guidance and spirituality in that respect. And honestly, I'm not seeing it. I don't know anybody. Quite honestly, I don't know anybody. And that does that. That I don't.
Well, I think too, like there's this, being raised fundamental Christian, in a cult, there was this belief that we are inherently sinful, that we are inherently evil, kind of, right? Like we're born in sin and we need to be saved. And so we don't have our own moral compass. So the church is going to decide what's moral and what's not moral. And I just think that's such a disempowering thing for humanity to feel that just by being born, we've done something wrong. Like we're in sin.
Yeah.
Just as soon as we're born, we're in sin and need to be saved. That always struck me as so, it just didn't make sense. It didn't feel right. And I don't need to be told what is right and what is wrong. Like I don't need to know that if I'm lying and the guilt I feel if I say I'm lying about something, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good to me. So then that's my moral code saying, don't fucking lie. Right? So it's like, it's this connection with self, whereas like religion, it's like, truth is here, truth and your moral code is written in this book. Whereas like now we're really starting to understand that truth and morality is within ourself. It's within. It's not an exterior thing. It's something we look for inside.
Right. And it's you said something a few minutes ago, and it reminded me of a story I wanted to share with you. I don't think I've ever told you this, but it was literally one of the last times I was in a church, and my ex-wife said, we got invited to go over to the First Baptist Church there in the town we were living in that Sunday for worship. Now, this is a Southern Baptist church, a deep Southern Baptist church, right? So we go in.
What is that? So for somebody who's doesn't understand what that means, what does it mean when you say, now this is a Southern Baptist church? What does that mean?
I'm fixing to explain that. Now I get to do some acting, okay?
Okay.
But we go in, and being guests, they set us right in the fucking front row, which is like, okay, God, So this this minister, this preacher, he starts his preaching, and he's preaching, and he's talking to the congregation, and he's talking down low like this. And the more he talks, for some reason, the more worked up he's getting, the more excited he's getting, because he's filled with the Lord. And, he wants to get this message across to you. And from 0 to 60 like that. And now everything he's saying ends in, ah. So, brothers and sisters, you come here today, to worship the Lord. Well, brothers, you're sinners. You're all sinners, not worthy of the house of the Lord. And I mean, this guy was yelling shit at me. And I'm sitting there just like, I just got here. What are you screaming at me for? It's 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I'm usually asleep because I worked till 3 a.m. the night before. And now you want to yell at me first thing in the morning? And we walked out of there. When we were walking out of the door, the preacher's standing there, and he shakes your hand, and he said, yeah, I'm preacher so-and-so. And I said, yeah, how you doing? My name's Dave Riley. He says, Dave, what can I do for you? I said, you can quit yelling so loud on a Sunday morning, man. It's tough. And I walked out, and I never went back. It was just the worst experience. And I mean, you were a sinner. You had no right to be walking this earth because you are a sinner. And,
Yeah.
and now sinners,
Yeah.
Can't do this without a beer.
And it's like on a frequency level, like guilt and shame are like one of the lowest frequencies you can feel, one of the lowest emotions you can feel. So imagine all the low frequency that's giving you, right? Like anytime people, it's you feel low because energetically you are you are as low frequency as you can pretty much get.
I honestly felt like shit after that.
Yeah.
I was pissed off. I was in a bad mood. It's like, what the hell? That's not how that's supposed to work. Not even in the ballpark. But, there it
You
is.
should be uplifted. Like, for me, it's like, yeah, there should be, like, if you're experiencing something divine, something holy, something spiritual, like, it shouldn't make you feel like that. It really just, it doesn't, yeah, like, it shouldn't make you feel, like, even when I see something really beautiful or really touching, I get, you get that overwhelmed sense. Sure. And you just, sometimes it'll bring you to tears because you just feel like, oh, it's so beautiful. And you can feel how incredible it is. And it's almost just this sense of spirit that comes over you. And you're just like, wow, like that's the feeling you should have, not this like, I suck. Because I'm a human and I sinned and I was born in sin and I'm going to die in sin and please save me from myself,
I mean, when I walk out, I have stood on a beach in Southern California before and watched the sun go down. Watch the last part of the day, sun go down, clouds in the sky, 10,000 different colors, the waves lapping the shore at my feet. And I'm just standing there staring at that sun going down, and you feel this sense of just peace and joy and oneness with everything around you. And I'm thinking, isn't that how that was supposed to make you feel?
Yeah.
Isn't that how you're supposed to feel when you come out of those places? Because I found my spot, And I think you noticed that when I came up to visit you, and the first time we went walking down the beach, it was like, God damn, I'm back. I missed it so much.
Yeah. No, I've got pictures of it. This look that you had, you stood there and you just, I captured it actually in the photos there of just this, I don't know, like it was like a peace and a belonging and a feeling of home when you could see it when you're standing there and you're looking at the ocean.
I couldn't breathe in enough. I
Yeah.
wanted that to be full of that salt air.
Yeah.
Because that was always such a huge part of my life, and now it's, not a part of my life. But that's, to me, is that feeling of
Yeah. That
wanting
sense of awe.
everything that people are looking for. That's why they're leaving that and going there.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, I never understood, even as like a little girl, like I tell this story, like, and if you've listened to any of the podcasts I've talked about, being raised in the cult and what it was like, I tell this story about like how I remember vividly being a little girl laying in the field, the birds, and I could hear them and the sunshine, and then just feeling so connected and at one with like everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then being dragged into the house and put tight, pinchy shoes and a dress that was scratchy and put into a building and like said to worship God. And I felt so disconnected. I was like, you took me from God.
What I was doing.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was doing. I felt connected with everything and I felt at peace and I felt harmony. And you're going to take me from all this and put me in a building?
Right.
Like, no. So I think that's too this like disenchantment people are starting to feel, about these organized institutions is the real disconnect.
Yeah. And I think people are also wanting to, like I said, it's for a lot of them, they want to be in charge of their own lives. And dare I say it, they want to be their own God. They don't want to worship this guy's God anymore. I want to be in charge. I want to do my thing. I want to fill myself with this world and this universe. Not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm just saying that there's there's that sentiment there that people are so disillusioned by organized religions that they're either going towards the old gods, as you talked about earlier, or they're choosing to become their own enlightened Buddha, basically is what it is, becoming their own, So that's, I think, is more what they're looking for in today. If I'm not wrong, you guys, somebody tell me. We do have a comment section.
Well, and I think it's about like, too, is the framework of like we've talked about, like that you're born in sin and you need to repent to this person behind the curtain and tell them all your sins. So it's putting you in a space that you need a middleman.
Right.
So like, yes, there's the concept of like that we have our own divinity and that we are our own gods. But then there's also the concept within the church of this, like, well, I need a middleman to communicate to God. Right. Whereas like that framework is just not working. Like it just doesn't work anymore because we are starting to really understand, like we don't need a middleman. Right? Like, and we're not, you got to think too, in the, let's just say the heyday of organized religions, there was a lot of poverty. People didn't know how to read. People weren't educated. Right? So now they are educated. They have access at their fingertips on their phones or computers to all this information, whereas a lot of these libraries of information in the past, like the Library of Alexandria, and all this was burnt. Mm-hmm. All this knowledge was destroyed because they needed to keep people ignorant, and ignorant in the true sense of that word. Because with education and knowledge comes power. So we've become empowered now with knowledge, and the framework for the organized religions is just not fitting.
It's Yeah, and I don't know. I just I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought. My dog barked and it went. Um,
Doesn't take much, eh? Once we reach a certain age,
not at
doesn't
this
take much
age.
to like feel
Not,
like
we were talking
squirrel.
about that earlier. That no matter how well we plan a trip to the grocery store, we always forget something.
You really forget what you came there for and get like 10 things you didn't need or didn't think you needed.
Every time I go to the grocery store, I do that. I always come back with bullshit I didn't need, but it looked good. So,
Probably because you went hungry. You're never supposed to do that.
yeah. But what I was going to say is, going back and looking at history and how all that knowledge is lost and how they wanted to take that power away. I mean, you want a great example of that. Look at ancient Rome. Look at the sculptures and the architecture and the engineering and the aqueducts and stuff that's still used today. How genius was all of that? And then there comes the rise of the Catholic Church. And a couple hundred years later, they're in medieval times, dark ages.
Yeah.
Total chaos, ignorance, stupidity, running rampant, disease everywhere, living in crap conditions, eating crap,
Yeah.
And that was just how quickly, like you said, that can be lost to turning everything over to what you think is the right way of doing things or are forced to do it that way.
Well, I mean, and part of the, the diseases was like the Black Plague was because they burned all the witches.
Yeah.
And the witches went their cats and, the mice and rats spread all the disease. So there you go. Yeah. No, it too, like, like for me, I look at religion as very patriarchal as well. And I think with, women's rights and the rise of the matriarch, like those old patriarchal systems it's part of the deconstruction, right? Is these organized power structures. And the church is a big one. I mean, I've talked about this before with my upbringing, like the authority was the man in the house. So I couldn't even pray without putting something over my head, whether it was a dishcloth or a rag or napkin to symbolize my submission and the authority of the male in the house. That he was the head of the household.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those, really patriarchal structures are they're not working anymore.
And is that still going on today?
Oh yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. That's what they believe is the man's the head of the household and women are to be obedient. And yeah, very old ways of thinking for sure.
Well, I can't say that sounds really out there to me because I was the son of a Marine Corps drill instructor. So life was pretty much just like that. My dad was the head of the house. My mom took care of the house and the kids. The kids, you didn't speak unless you were spoken to. You said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And, so yeah, our house was a lot like that. A lot like that. But we weren't a religious family. I mean, my dad and mom were like, yeah, they believed in God, but we never went to church. A handful of times when I was a kid, But
that all comes, but a lot of
your religion and my father's military career had a lot of things in common, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it does. It's very similar, right? Like in the thinking of how the structure of the family is, and yeah, it definitely changed from matriarchal to patriarchal by the bringing in of the structured Abrahamic religions, right? So, and that's all being deconstructed. So it's just not fitting anymore.
No,
just don't fit.
Got to change your shoes. You got to change your shoes. I mean, it's, yeah. And I don't know. I'm not even sure. And this probably pissed a lot of people off, but I don't care. I don't know how to talk about this without sounding like I'm knocking religion and putting down.
I'll talk about it. I'll knock religion all day long.
Yeah, but that's, but that's kind of what it comes down to is,
Well,
you gotta, it's when you don't find sense being made in anything like that anymore, then you start looking at it like you can't look at it seriously. Just like me and the Baptist preacher thing a while ago, you can't take it seriously.
Well, and to be fair, I don't think there's a lot of super religious people listening to the Witch and the Wise Man podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. Actually, I got a couple in the comments, and I thank them for their comment. I appreciate their opinion, and please keep listening. That was all I could say. I'm not going to get into a fight with anybody. I don't do that.
No, there's really no point. And I honestly, like, it's not that I'm going against religion either. I mean, I do think that there's some really beautiful core principles in there that people can live by. And if that gives you peace and if it makes you a good human, then, and you're at peace with that, then giddy up. But for a lot of us, I have an issue with the Bible thumping, such, where they're trying to convert you and they're trying to, feels like they're hitting you over the head with the Bible, because it's like everything goes back to quoting scripture and this and that. And it's like, I come from that. Like, I know what that's all about. I used to be able to quote scripture like any Sunday preacher could. I mean, I forget a lot of it now, but at the end of the day, if you're not religious and you don't subscribe to that, you can quote scripture all you want. It's a book I don't believe.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Quote all you like, but I know how that book was created, and there's a lot of things that were left out that are in the basement of the Vatican somewhere. So,
you talk about the Book of Enoch sometimes. That's interesting material there. For sure. That's it. That's it right there. People are finding holes. They're finding flaws. They're finding problems of running into things that you're just going, I don't believe that. I can't believe that. That's, to me, in my life, that's wrong. It's not going to work. It never has, never will. You're going to run across that a lot. And that's what also contributes to driving people out in a way. But I don't know.
Well, there's a huge, I think too, people are starting to, or have been seeing the materialistic side of it, the money side of it. I mean, it used to be like the tithing. I remember my mom tithed 10% of her earnings. And it's like, we were poor, but she had to tithe. She had to give the church money every single month, whether we never went hungry because we grew our own food. But if we were city kids, we definitely would have, because mom didn't make much money and dad was not well. So he was at home. So it's like, we didn't have that 10% to give, but mom found a way to give it. And, it used to be, you had to, if your loved one was stuck in purgatory, you could pay the church money to, basically buy your loved one's way out of purgatory. What? Oh, money's going to get them out of purgatory? Yes.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, let me have 50 and I'll get Uncle Paul out of there. Purgatory. He's being tortured. Yeah. So there's just a lot of things that, it's like, no, we know better than that. Come on.
Oh, jeez. It is like, you're stuck in purgatory. How do you, I don't know. It's an religion is so confusing. I mean, it's and the thing is, I think it was Nietzsche that said that organized religion has killed more people in the world than any other reason, any other. And it's true. Everything is in the name of God or the name of Allah or the name of this or the name of that. And I mean, you stop and think. Cain and Abel. Cain slew Abel. The first killing wiped out a quarter of the world's population. Do you know that? Figure it out. Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. One of them dies. That's a quarter of the world's population wiped out in that one murder.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah.
Did you ever see that movie Year One with like Jack Black and Michael Cera?
No,
where it's like they have that whole scene with.
I can't stomach Jack Black. I'm sorry. I just,
oh my God, it's so funny. But it's all that. It's like all that biblical stuff, and it's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know, and it's 100% true, and so that, I mean, that in of itself makes you ask. Like for me, when I look at that and I go, these structures have been responsible for such destruction. How can the root of that come from something good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's where my mind goes to, is like, if these religions are killing and murdering people, like a lot of people, like who's behind that? Like, it doesn't sound like something positive to me.
No, not at all. It's it boils down to, like I was talking about earlier, with the different sects of the religions all branching off and busting off. It's a game of who's right in their ways. I mean, look at the Catholics and the Protestant over in Ireland, how they've been going at it forever.
Yeah.
They're worshiping the same person, yet they can't get along because of the way that they're worshiping those people. It's ridiculous. It's just.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, how can something come from, I don't know, you think you'd want, like, as a creator, you think you'd want
Yeah. And I mean,
people to like live in harmony and
exactly
to not kill each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, right?
Yep.
I don't know. It seems simple.
Yeah.
Don't kill each other because you don't worship me the same way. Yeah, and for me, it's like, I kind of think of that as like, say, as a parent, like you give birth to these children, and you have these children all love you differently. Doesn't mean that this child loves you more or better. It just means they're all loving you differently, right? And it's like love. The root should be love.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be hate. But that seems to be what. Like as a creator, I'd just be like, I'm just happy you're acknowledging me, you're loving me, and how you're doing that is kind of, you're getting lost in the details, right?
Yeah, it is just organized. To me, it's just organized insanity. Because they're all fucking nuts. They can't. Sorry, you're ranting again. They can't think for themselves. They have to consult priest, or they have to talk to the preacher before they get married, or they have to abide by this law or this rule and this one. They can't be seen here, so they can't go down there, and they damn sure can't be seen over there, so we're going to stay away from there. But that's the places that they always flock to whenever they have the opportunity. Just check it out, I'm sure. Make sure it's still operating properly. But people are just tired of that. They're done. They're done. And I think that's the whole root of it, is your first experience in going out is you just want that freedom to be you, to not follow, to not lead, to not do anything, just be you and find yourself. And along the way, then you start finding out the ancient religions, because it just kind of naturally starts falling in. You start learning about the old gods. You start learning about witchcraft. You start learning about the history of and how it got here. And it makes you now part of your life again and makes you part of the earth and the universe as a whole. Because now this is what your mind is seeing as home. All of it, instead of just this block on the corner on Sunday morning.
Yeah, and I think that's part of that calling of the old gods, or the earth honored spirituality, right? Is that it is more about honoring and respecting our planet, nature, ourselves, right? And taking that power back, and not needing that middleman to feel connected to God, source, universe, whatever that is to you, right? For me, that's where I find the divine is in nature, like you were saying earlier, that's where I feel connected, and I feel at one with everything and not separate. And I think that's the big thing that especially the Abrahamic religions do, is it causes a lot of separation. You don't feel part of everything. You feel us against them. And that's where we get that, well, they're bad because they don't worship like us and their God's different. So it's us against them. And that's all separation. That's all that disconnect, right?
Right. And for me, it was just like that. There was nothing for me of substance that I was getting out of an organized religion. Nothing. I tried. I honestly did. I went through a phase when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, just the end of my high school and beginning of my college area, where I was one of those Jesus freaks, carried a Bible around all the time, read it, scripture, blah, 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 Bible class, blah, blah.
Really?
So, yeah.
I don't know why.
I know all that stuff. But, and then I went, several times to church after that, just to, maybe I'm not getting something, maybe, and I just wasn't getting it, period, at all. Nothing. It was not resonating with me. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't buy it. Okay. How can you, you're asking me to believe in an invisible man that lives in the sky. And I'm just having a hard time, wrapping my head around that. So, I took a step back, and that's when I started discovering that, hey, this is it. This is what's around me. You start looking at everything differently, from your hikes through the forest to standing on a seashore to how you treat people and how you treat your friends. Everything changes, and it's then you feel like you're becoming whole. You're becoming, your place in the universe. Your speck of dust in the universe. You get that sense. So, and you just don't get that with organized religion. I never did, not once. And I went through some.
Well, and for me, it was as a very sensitive, intuitive child. You read these Bible stories and they're horrific.
Yeah.
They're disturbing. I remember, and that's probably what started my initial disillusion at 5 years old, was this and I remember saying this God's mean. I remember literally saying that, this is a mean God. He's smiting everybody and causing the flood, killing everybody, and then Sodom and Gomorrah, and turning Lot's wife to salt because she turned around. Wow.
The one that
That doesn't.
the one that gets me is the story of Job, a truly religious man. I mean, he lived for God. And what does God do? But he goes, well, you know what? I want to test you just a little bit. Here's some bad shit coming down. Okay. Your wife dies. Your kids turn to salt. I mean, just every bad thing. He gets sores all over himself. He has to pick them open with pottery, to drain the wounds. And I mean, he just beats this guy, beats this guy, beats this guy. But he remained faithful. And it was, it all
It
came
sounds
out
like an abusive relationship.
yeah. It's
Doesn't
like,
that feel
oh,
abusive?
well, you say you believe in me, but try that. There, all your livestock just died. What do you think of me
Yeah.
now? Huh? It's like, what the hell?
And just the pure fact that there's all this this loss of life to test one person. So what about his wife and his kids and these animals? What about did their life have no value, that they were just a tool to be used to test this one man with? That's the kind of stuff that, I was just like, I don't want to worship. No, he's mean. No, thank you. He sounds like he's jealous. Literally, I am a jealous God. I am and it's just jealousy is just, that's such a human trait. Why would God be jealous? What? That's so, even as a human, we can come to the point of not having jealousy, and we're not divine, right? So why can't God get over himself? I don't know. It just, none of it ever made it. It really, his traits were very human, and if he's a divine being, it just never made sense to me, ever.
Yeah. And it's like my son, when we were talking the other night, I'd referenced that earlier. He said, well, how in the heck did they ever come up with religions? And I said that I honestly, in my opinion, I don't think an uneducated mind could figure out how to explain anything. So they had to blame it on something. They had to have a one central figure that said, this thing did all of this. This is where we came from, and he did all this, and he's in control. It's, the sun up there, or the moon, or God, or whatever. But that's who's in charge. And he takes care of all this and all these people. And, it's like, okay, but how do you get heaven and hell? And I said, well, you have to look at life, son. I said, life ain't easy. Even at 13 years old, you know this already. Life is not an easy walk. There's constant fighting. There's constant problems. There's, constant sorrow. There's heartache, and you got to deal with all this stuff on a daily basis. So the only escape you have to look forward to is thinking, you know what, when I die, I'm going to a place that has golden streets and diamond doorknobs, and, and it's going to be the best life ever. Do nothing all day. Everybody loves everybody. We just all get along and we're all happy. That's what I got to look forward to after all this life.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe, well, we got something in store for you too,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just, to me, that you don't have a scientific explanation 2,500 years ago. There's no science. So they had to make shit up as to how things happened, how they got here, what they were. That's where I think the legend of dragons comes from, because these farmers were finding these massive bones out in their field, and they're, all over the earth, and they're now creating this character symbol for everything bad in the world is mean, bad dragon, or if you're Chinese, good symbol. Now I'm out of breath. But Yeah, our time is just about wrapped up, lady. Thank you guys for listening. We'll discuss this topic, I'm sure, off and on. We seem to touch on it quite often in future episodes. Once again, if you have any input, our Gmail is thewitchandwiseman@gmail.com. Catch us on all social medias. How many different social medias are we on now?
I don't know. We're on all the main ones.
I'm like chasing around
TikTok,
all day long.
Facebook,
Yeah.
Insta,
Yeah,
YouTube.
everywhere you get podcasts. If you want to see this podcast, there's two places you can find our video podcast. That's on YouTube and on Spotify. Everybody else is carrying our audio podcasts. So you can leave us comments there in the comment section, wherever we're easy to get a hold of. We got some stuff in store for future episodes that I'm not going to cover now because some of it's going to be a surprise. And we're moving right along. Our following is growing. You guys, please like and share this. We would appreciate it. And you can find Tonya at tonyasteinborn.com or at Yahoo. Which was
Well, I've just got Linktree now. I don't really have my website. Just find me on socials. Same thing. It's Witch of Wellness or Tonya Steinborn. Yeah.
There you go. So please get a hold of us if you have any questions or show suggestions. We'll definitely consider that. And with that, Miss Steinborn, I think we're about done.
Okay. We're done like dinner.
Yep. Thank you again for a great show. I appreciate you so much. And guys, we will talk to you again real soon. Night, everybody.
Night.
Her laughter is shadow, his wisdom is flame. Two sides of a coin, never quite the same.